I've had a lot of dogs in my adult life, but I have one dog that really stands out. He's what I call my once-in-a-lifetime dog. He was full grown, but still pretty young when I got him from the pound, but training him was a breeze. It was like, I'd show him something, and then after that I could just think it at him, basically, and he would do it. He was just so willing and just reading my mind and doing whatever I wanted him to do. He was so friendly and so likable. Neighbor kids would come knock on the door. Can Trevor come out to play? You know, and the first couple times I watched to make sure it was safe, but he would just, when they started annoying him, he would just trot off with his tail up in the air, happy as could be. I had some friends who gave a really pretty formal New Year's Eve party every year. And the last year I was living in that town, they sent an invitation to me and Trevor. It was like he was invited to this party. So we know he'll behave and everybody will love him. He'll be, he'll be a big hit. Just bring him. So even though he was very lovable and everybody liked him a lot, he had a really good sense of discretion. One time, I was living in my parents' house in Nederland, and they'd been living overseas. When they were moving back, I wasn't there on the day that the movers came to deliver their furniture. But my mother said Trevor went just badass crazy. Hackles up, barking, baring his teeth, snarling, and it took everything my mother had to do to hold him back. Like, he did not like those guys. Well, it turns out there had been a rash of people who were moving back from Saudi who were getting robbed about a month after they moved back. And it was that crew who was, because they knew what the people had. They knew what they had that was valuable. So it was that crew, but they didn't come to my parents' house. And I thank Trevor for that. Another time, I had just driven in from Austin to Nederland, and I got pulled over. It was late 70s, early 80s. I had lots of reason in my car to not want to get pulled over. Trevor, every time I got the window rolled down more than about 4 inches, Trevor went into attack mode. So I couldn't roll the window down, and I was like, I don't think you want me to get out of the car. I don't know how he'll react. And the cop was like, just go. I don't know why he pulled me over. But Trevor was like, not going to let that man. I guess he knew I didn't like that man. He was not going to let him anywhere near me. Another evidence of his protectiveness is I left Nederland, I moved back to Austin. I was living in a house out on Valente on a cove, and I was really into windsurfing at the time. And I didn't have a windsurfer, but my landlady did. She didn't want me to get on the lake for whatever reason, and I respected that. So I would just sail up and down the cove. Trevor would sit on the dock, like he knew I could swim. We went swimming together all the time, and he'd been on a sailboat with me, but he didn't trust that windsurfer thing. So he would sit on the dock and watch me go up the cove and down the cove and up the cove and down the cove. And as soon as I went down, he would be in the water and he'd circle around me until I got back up on the board, and then he'd go swim back to shore, get on the dock and watch me go up the cove and down the cove and up the cove. So he really watched out for me a lot. I had another dog at the time. I don't want to overshadow him. His name was Sadiq. He was an Australian Shepherd. He was wonderful, but he did get overshadowed by Trevor a lot. But anyway, we were living on this property. It was a big, like 2 or 3 acres, and I just lived in this one-room house kind of up on the hill, and my landlady lived in the main house that was like right on the edge of the cliff overlooking the water. She had 3 dogs. 2 were very imposing Rottweilers, and the other one was some kind of mutant. I don't know what she was, but she was big, and she did whatever the Rottweilers did. My 2 dogs, who were male, and her 3 dogs, who were female, pretty much ignored each other. And it was a big piece of property, so my dog stayed around me, and the other dog stayed around Amy, and there was plenty of room, so it wasn't an issue. And Trevor liked to go on walkabouts. We usually had the gate open, so sometimes he'd go out the front, and sometimes he'd go over the 6-foot chain link fence. One day, now we're going to get into another Teresa's bath time adventure for others of you who have heard my bath adventure in Las Vegas. It was a Sunday morning. It was a beautiful day. I was taking a nice long bath. just got my hair sudsed up, and I hear Trevor screaming. My dear beloved Trevor, who I would do anything to protect, is screaming in pain. So I'm like out the door, lickety split. And by the time I get down to the very edge of the property, Trevor had tried to go over the fence, and sometimes when he went over the fence, he would kind of bounce off as he went over, but his leg had gotten caught between the fence and the gate, and he was hanging by his leg from the top of the 6-foot fence, and as soon as he was compromised, the Rottweilers were like, go for him. So as it happens, Amy had been taking a shower at the same time. So I'm out there, like, we're both wet and sudsy and soaking, and I'm screaming and she's screaming. Trevor is like yelling in pain. The Rottweilers are snarling, "Arr!" And Sadiq didn't bark, but he kind of yodeled. So he's running around trying to hurt the Rottweilers, yodeling, yodeling, yodeling. Now I have to tell you, the whole time I was going up and down the cove on my windsurfer, I never saw anybody on any of the other docks. There were like 6 or 7 other docks. But that morning, by the time she had pulled her dogs off and I had lifted Trevor's 80 pounds up high enough to get him untangled from the gate, we kind of took a deep breath and we looked around, and there was somebody standing on each dock looking at us going, what in the world? So I have had serious puppy lust for the last couple of years. Like, I see a puppy, just like, oh, I want to take it home. And my living circumstances are not conducive to that. But sometime soon, I hope to have another puppy, and I hope that it's anywhere near the bond that I had with Trevor, because